Hi, Bookish friends. It's your girl Alyssa, and I am here for a summary thriller bookish episode. What does that mean? I'm here with the queen of thriller recommendations. This is Elizabeth with Reading Wryly. She's one of my favorite booktubers. Her Instagram is iconic, but it's her booktube. Every episode genuinely has some of the most amazing thriller and like subgenre recommendations from like summertime to winter to like if you're looking for like locked door, every single little element of a thriller you're looking for or a spooky tale you will find. So without further ado, hey, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for that. I'm feeling red right now. Whew. I am really good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about all of these books. And this is it was really hard for me to come bring these down to 10 books because honestly, I was at 23 and I was like, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can bring it down to 10. But I did, and I feel like these do really represent my taste in thrillers.
Okay, I understand that this entire episode is going to be about your top 10 thrillers, like your favorites at this point. Like of
Yeah.
all time, I feel like it's hard for me to ask people because I'm now realizing that that can change. So these are your top 10 as of in this moment in your life.
Yeah, 100%. So
Okay.
I went into this with very strict rules for myself. So anything that was thriller horror adjacent or thriller sci-fi adjacent, there's so many recommendations I could give for those. I tried to stay away from that. I really tried to stay in thriller, but of course there are still going to be some genre crossovers within this. And then also, this is not the thriller list that I would recommend someone who is just starting to read thrillers because there are staples. There are staples that I think if you're starting in it to get into thrillers, you have to hit. That's not what this list is. That's a totally different list. But if you want at the end, I do have some of those in front of me. So maybe at the end we can give you a little bit of that too. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, these are specifically after reading so many thrillers, after having I've been reading thrillers for years now. I'm so familiar with plot twists. I'm familiar with all of that. And I've really gotten, I feel like, down to the core of what I love about thrillers, which honestly for me is more of the psychological aspect. It's the what happens to a human when they go through this trauma or violence or, moral compromise. Um, I'm really into the nitty gritty, and therefore a lot of these are also very dark. They are very dark. So I was gonna say that. Um, Also, I don't have a physical copy of all of them. I thought
That's
I
okay.
should, but I don't. But yeah, these are my top 10 in no particular order. This is not, the one is number one and number 10 is number 10. It's just my top 10 thriller books that I love. And this is it's just an evolution of my thriller reading journey. So
I absolutely adore hearing you say that, like loving thrillers. I also think that like loving books, we all have kind of at some point or end of our lives, we loved a book. Maybe life happened, college, moving, which you will, maybe you didn't read for a bit. But when you
mhm.
start to read again, like later in life, and like you have a little bit more time or you're making time, for the girlies who get it, reading on your lunch break, reading on your way home, an audiobook, reading while you're folding clothes, like if you want to do it, like you will find a way. Staying up super late on a Friday night, the best kind of way to celebrate the weekend. There's a way when you love to read a book, if it has you in its grips and you cannot stop. To me, that is one of the best parts of a thriller. When like I can probably name out two or three thrillers off the top of my head where like I would pause the audiobook, I would close the physical copy, and I would go do something, and I'd be like, I kind of want to know. Like, I think I know who the killer is, or like, I think I know what the twist is. I'll keep reading, and I'm like, and I was wrong. Or I was
Mhm.
close, but not quite. There's something about that where it's like a good twist, or like you cannot stop reading is divine. Do you feel the same way? Are you here for the twist, or do you more so like the journey to get there?
Okay, so as far as thrillers are concerned, how I categorize them in my head, I guess. If I'm reading a thriller, I'm looking for something that is faster paced. I feel like that is kind of a hallmark of a thriller. It's going to be fast paced. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking on as it grabs you and it's almost like um playing a game with you.
Mm,
You want to be smarter than the book, right? And that's why you're like, no, it could be this, it could be this. And you get the
yeah.
white and you're like, um But like, so there's that element. It should be faster paced. Also, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of readers gravitate towards thrillers with very clever twists. And I feel like that, again, is another hallmark element of a thriller. Um, and I feel like my list does contain those stories that have those twists, but it also, like for me, it comes down to, like I said before, like the psychology of it. Like I am a late diagnosed autistic. I don't know if we've talked about that.
I don't think we have. That's really cool though, that you know that about yourself.
Yes,
That's really cool.
it's changed so much about how I give myself space and I give myself credit and like allow myself to um chill a little bit more, I guess. But or at least it like makes sense to me now, you know. But um so a lot of these are about like people's perception being changed because that's something that I struggle with. It's like my feeling like I know what's going on, and then in an instant, the world changes, the entire scope of my life changes, or it's like because I'm misunderstanding something, or I'm not like catching on to what other people are catching on to. And so, like, I feel like that really plays a huge part in like my book choices here as well, and like how what I like in thrillers too.
I like that for me, for folks who are on the spectrum, I feel like in a lot of ways they have different perspectives on conversations, like many people do. What I may convey in a compassionate way, or like even if I'm expressing something and in my head it makes like sense.
Hmm.
My grandma always says it like this. She would always say like your mind is like a waffle. Some people have to be able to fill each square individually with syrup. And some people just drizzle everything and it's a mess, but to them it's like that's perfect. Like the way it is the way it is. And for
Huh.
me, it's like that's kind of like the mind. Like for some people, one square by one square, you can't finish until it's all done. And for some people, it's like there's syrup everywhere, there's butter everywhere.
There's
it's
chaos.
it's chaos on the surface to
Yeah.
other people, but in their mind, like this is reality. This is the way it should be. Like this is the way it's always been. And it's all about perspective. So for me, like the way that you talk about books on your YouTube and the passion you've always had for it and the way that's transitioned over the years, I just think that like it shows this universal way of the love of books bridges any communication to me,
Mm.
across genres, across years, across time, locations. Like the way that you love books and the way that I love books and the way that we may read a thriller book as we did on your podcast and have completely different perspectives on the same story just
Huh.
shows how good a book is, or sometimes how bad a book is, but it connects people. You know what I mean? Like my mind might be a messy waffle and your
Mm.
mind may be those filled in squares. But
Mhm.
both are still good breakfast. Both are still amazing. The metaphor is there. The metaphor is there. Am I hungry? Maybe. So,
No, I
but
like
yeah.
that. I haven't heard that before. I do like that. I feel like in general, like because of that part of me as well, like I'm constantly afraid of being misunderstood. So
Mm.
which is why long form content usually works better for me because I do have that like, it, compulsion to make sure I am being understood in the correct way, you know? And so when I talk about books, I really like I try my best to like get down to like what I love about it without giving spoilers. So that's always kind of difficult, you know, because you don't how much is too much, how much is not enough. But yeah, there's like a point there that in my mind, in the way I like categorize things, where it's like, for this book, this is the point. This is the point where it's too much. And that might be different for other people too. But like, I have to get to all the things before that before I can get to the point of that, to that little nugget. And so just my style, I think, of reviewing books is a little bit more long-winded and but that's just kind of my personality.
I like your attention to detail, and as someone who does spoil books, it's like I'm not a cop, I'm not a cop. But yeah, I do I spoil books? Yes. Do I give people warnings ahead of time? Also, yes.
Mhm.
But there are some books that I read and like I don't know who to go to talk about it.
Mhm.
And oddly enough, sitting in front of a computer, turning on my camera, and because some books I read, as you know, are scary. Like some thrillers can go into twisty, turny, dark areas that your friends and family may not want to hear about.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so for me, I'm like, well, if I can't tell my friends and family, and I've got a very small circle, social media is great, but like not everyone interacts in the comments maybe, or it's not their cup of tea. So I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, like where am I gonna go? And YouTube and even seeing your reviews has been so comforting and grounding for me. It's the same feeling as when like you have a passion for a subject and you're talking about it and people are looking at you and you can tell they are like not interested, but they're
Yeah.
smiling because they're trying to be polite, but they're not actually invested. They don't want to know what happens.
Yeah, and I feel like that's so obvious when that is happening to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I can see it. I can see it too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like I wish people would be more honest, like, hey, no offense, but like I don't want to know what happens in A, B, and C. Because when people do have an interest, I could sit and listen to you talk about your favorite thrillers from the past 5 years for hours. If you had like a 3 hour episode, I would be like, let me get my blanket, let me get my tea and my snacks. Like, this is great. This is a wonderful, magical place. Some books are like super dark, even for me. And I'll be like, hey, here's my line. I'm not going to read 600 pages about this, but I'll
Okay.
watch a YouTube video where someone talks about it. Maybe I don't want to read it because if you're like a visual reader, I know for some people, like when they read, they see it in the like a movie in their mind. So some
Mhm.
horror books are like, yeah, that line is very clear because I can't just turn it off. I can't just close the book and it stops.
Uh,
I'm kind of like that. When I read, it's like a movie. So if it
Same.
gets into a super dark area and I'm getting uncomfy, I'm like, this is a mental no-no. It's like it's like having food poisoning, but emotionally. I'm like, oh, this feels horrific. And I have to stop. There is one book I can think of. I started it and I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called Listen to Your Sister.
Yes.
I own
Nina
it. Yes, I own it. I started it. It is a very well written story, but it's too close to my personal life that
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, this makes me very like anxious and uncomfortable. Not that it's bad. I just like I couldn't uh,
Mm.
break the fiction from reality because I'm like, this is so
Yeah.
close to my life. So I was
Uh-huh.
like, emotional and a tummy no. Like this, I can't do it.
Uh-huh.
But meanwhile, like I can read about like Trad Wife by Sarah Jessica Schaefer. I can read like Buffalo Vampire Hunter. I can read that. But yeah, there's something about like uh, an older sister and like two younger brothers or being
Mm.
parentified that for me is like, ooh,
Sure.
this is a hard read. Like, ooh, this does not feel good. Do you have any elements of that in thriller for you? Like reading it and you're like, ugh, yeah, don't like, can't do that. That doesn't feel good.
It's interest that's an interesting question because it's weird because I feel like I have been desensitizing myself over the last however many years. So like I remember the first time I read Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and I
Mhm.
was shook. Like I was mad, I was full of rage, and I couldn't figure out how to separate that from my judgment of the book. And like over time, I have come to appreciate that book more because obviously it's intending to make me feel that way. Like that's
Mhm.
the whole purpose of it. And so like there is that element of having to like separate yourself from it, but then there's also like personal triggers that obviously, and for me, I wouldn't say I have too many, but if there is one, it's like being gaslit. And that's part of the reason why that book was so hard for me too, was she was just constantly women being gaslit is hard for me. But
I get that.
trying to think of anything like I usually don't need trigger warnings though, but I can't think of any one moment in particular where I was like, no, I can't
No,
think of any moment.
it is all good. I feel like I remember reading that book. I read it on a road trip, my first long trip with my girlfriend, to like a seaside town, like super beautiful, super cozy, but it was hot. And I remember I read it on the road trip there and a beautiful romantic moment in real life. Meanwhile, I'm like reading a scene that involves a attic and I'm reading a scene that involves a bathroom
Mhm.
and a tub. And I
Yeah.
was reading it and I was like, this is like Evil Dead level gory. And I was like, but the storyline and what's happening to these women in this small town is is interesting. Like I was more interested in the women than the big bad, if you will. It was definitely giving like Fright Night vibes.
Mm.
And I was just kind of like, you know what? Um, this is my first introduction to the author. I actually have his book Horror Store, and I cannot wait to read that this Halloween. But I had like a taboo opinion on that book. I remember I read it, and there's no spoilers, but there's a person of color who's important to the storyline.
Mm.
And at a certain point in the story, she like disappears, not deceased. She just like when the book ends, like
You don't mention what
you don't
happened.
get a lot of closure on her. You get closure on like the other characters,
Yeah.
but you do not get closure on the one character of color. And I was like, so she was literally there to like help these characters get through a certain situation, and then once her task was complete, she
Yeah.
fades to the background. And I was like, don't like that.
That's
But it,
fair.
yeah, I was like, no. Also, she was written as a person of color, so I was like, yeah, someone do something before I do. Like, someone fix it.
Mm.
But yeah, I will read more from that author. I'm sure you've read like more of his work. I'm going to at some point, but in the
Mm.
back of my head after reading that story, I was like, I know he wrote Wayward Witches. I know that he has other stories that have come out. I
Mm.
remember the cover of that book is like a hand, and it's in the like glow in the dark um
Oh.
like
Hmm.
bottle. I saw the promo for that. It looked really cool. I just in my head I was like, I'm gonna need him to do better for women of color. If you're gonna add
Oh.
us to stories,
Mhm.
please give us like a full circle
Oh, Witchcraft
story.
and Wayward Girls. I did read that one. I think we read that for the book club, actually. Actually, I think I've read all of his books except for Horror Store. I don't think I've read that one.
Horror Store, I mean, I'm excited to read it for Halloween. I'm trying to have a diverse series of episodes for Halloween because it's one of my favorite times of year. But Horror Store, I'm like IKEA but spooky. Say
Yeah.
less. I love this.
Mhm.
I also, on each episode coming up this autumn, I'm having each guest share a real life scary story or like
Ooh,
an urban legend from their like part of the world,
nice.
or their personal lives. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, it's all coming together. I feel like the guy from Emperor's New Groove with the two llamas, and I'm like, it's all coming together. My Switch
What
Puffs.
is
Yes,
that? Is it Kronk? Is
yes, it's Kronk, and he's like explaining his entire plan. He's like, in Cusco, we'll get here. It's all coming together.
yes, yes, yes.
That's how I feel.
That's what
And if we get Cusco here, I'm sitting here and I'm like, and if I get this author here and I get them to tell a personal spooky story, it'll all come together. So that's how my brain is working. I feel
I
like the
like
guy with
it.
all the red strings, when he's like, was it Sunny? It's like a show called like Sunny Somewhere Else in Philadelphia. He's got
Yeah,
all the
it's funny.
strings. That's how I feel. Yeah, explaining
Wait,
my plans.
when he with the whiteboard?
Yes, with the
That's
whiteboard and
exactly
all
what
the
I was
red
picturing
string.
earlier. That's exactly what I was picturing earlier when we
Yes, that's the entire vibe of everything I've ever planned for this podcast. It's like, okay, it has to be diverse, spooky, fun, and unique. And I was like, I can do it. So the challenge is set by myself. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, who can raise the bar? Many people. But yeah, but as we dive into your top 10 favorite thriller books, is
Mm.
there anything that you want listeners to know about like what are three things that make a good thriller story?
Hmm.
My
So,
last icebreaker.
well, for like I mentioned earlier, fast pace, clever twists would be number two. And then for number three, for me, it's the psychological depth. Is there depth to these characters? Is there like, do I care? You know, because if I don't care, then I don't care.
That's true.
And for me, that also in what is kind of helpful with that as far as my entertainment goes is that if there's social commentary, if there's some kind of critique about something, that is almost as important to me as the twists. Like it to the same extent can make or break a book for me. And so like I said, like these do have twists, but like that is just as important to me because I really like that's what I'm all about. Like I'm trying to understand people, you know, generally. And I that's my hyperfixation is like psychology and why people behave the way they do and like why do these people go like are raised in the same situation and yet this person makes that choice and this person makes that choice and like why like what are the differences? I know like every human is flawed and every character should be flawed. You know, like there's no such thing as a perfect human or a good human or a bad human. We're all a little bit of everything. And I like to think that like there is a spectrum of like good and bad. And we just like nobody's all one side or the other. We're just moving along every day. Every little choice we make is just taking us a little bit back and forth. And it's like, it's not a solid thing. It's not a solid state. It's like our choices have consequences and therefore, but then I want to know why. Why are we making these kinds of choices?
Ooh, that that makes me think of like Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, where
Mhm.
it's like the mother figure where you certain people remember her in the past as being a really horrific person, but we also know in the present that she dealt with like substance abuse issues. We know from her diary entries like she was struggling with postpartum, but in the
Mhm.
90s they weren't talking about that. Even though the story is set in a haunted house, the way that Rachel Harrison wrote about women's mental health, motherhood,
Mhm.
what would a haunted house and what would a demon look like to a mom who's trying to raise three girls and is isolated in the 90s, and
Mhm.
who does not feel comfortable enough, like she cannot talk about her mental health. She cannot have a single bad day. She cannot talk about things that she's struggling with related to substance abuse issues without her ex-husband like manipulating that and
Mhm.
rewriting memories, like telling his daughter certain things. Like just
Uh,
that was terrifying to me.
I love Rachel Harrison for that, and she's not on this list, but that's only because I feel like she qualifies as horror.
That
Um,
makes sense.
but yes, I love her social commentary in all of her books, and she is just such a good representation for women, I feel like.
I agree. I agree. I fingers
But
crossed. I'm trying to get her on the podcast. Like I've reached out to her reps. I'm like, please
I
come
would
here.
agree.
Fingers crossed, man. Play Nice has like stayed in my head long after I finished it, and I gave my mom a copy of the book, and she's
Nice.
not a big horror person, but I was like, Happy Mother's Day. Also, please read this. So she has a copy, and she read it, and she was like, this was very thought provoking as from a mom's perspective,
Oh,
and I
nice.
was like, that's something I can't. I don't know what that waffle box is like. I don't know how that would feel to read this book, like for your kid to give this to you and be like, in a non crappy way, this reminded me of you because it's thought provoking. It's thought provoking.
Mhm.
No one's 100% good. No one's 100% bad. And not everyone is comfortable with that truth. Like people need to feel a sense of, no, they were evil. And it's like, were they evil or were they, it was the worst day of their life or they, it was building up to this boiling point. And that's the beauty of like the books that we recommend and like the books we talk about with thrillers and horror. These people aren't always 100% like the villain in the tower.
Mhm.
Sometimes they were a good person. They were just pushed to a certain point. For
100%.
me, I'm like a thriller ick is when it's not explained. Like a
Mhm.
thriller ick is when like, oh, she's evil because she's evil. I'm like, so you're not gonna give me like a reason, like a
Yeah.
motive
I don't
everywhere?
like that either. Like that goes into the whole psychology of it because that's like, no, I'm not interested now. Um,
Yeah. Or like mental health, where they pull the like it was all a dream, or when they pull a and this person was crazy, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, what were they suffering with? I'm
mhm.
not gonna say his name. First name is Rye Swager. I'm gonna leave it there. But I'm just saying someone is infamous for pulling a certain card in the
Uh-huh.
literary world.
Yeah.
Um, it may not end. They don't end their books super well all the time. Hot take, hot take. And I'm all gonna all I'm gonna say is that this author in the past, only one left. Who said that? Pulled a mental health card and didn't. I remember like he didn't give a lot of description of like what this person was going through, and I was like, if you're gonna say it's mental health, you have to actually explain what they were struggling with, and
Feeling going
yeah,
through. Yeah.
100%, and why they did what they did. You can't just say like she wandered off into the mist and had this mental health issue and killed everyone.
Mm.
That's not like you have to explain. Come on.
Yeah.
And
I would
ambiguous
come
endings are
back
okay.
to, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was saying ambiguous endings are okay as long as like the buildup was strong. To me, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Same. I love an ambiguous ending. I love being able to like decide for myself what happened. I know some people don't. Um, but the way you're talking about whether it like makes sense, like make it make sense kind of thing, it reminds me of Misery by Stephen King of Annie Wilkes. And she's like, it's not fair. Like, and I always come back to that. Like, is it fair or is it not fair? I don't have to love it, but it needs to be fair.
That's
Otherwise,
true.
I'm done.
You're. Will I pull a will I pull a I'm your number one fan and taking someone's legs out? No. But do I have a favorite author where if she wrote a genre where it's like that if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. I
Mm.
would probably like, it's one of those things where if it's someone that you like, if I have an author who I deeply love and respect their work, and then they decide to write about a subject that they themselves are not experiencing, and they
Mhm.
write about it and it's done like harmfully, or it wasn't researched right, you could tell there was no sensitivity readers. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oof, if you're not going to do it right, don't do it. Like, it's one of those things where like, especially with like characters of color or for queer representation, writing a story and like we are side characters, or like we get killed off just to
Mhm.
get killed off, or like the character is only there to help the Caucasian character get from point A to point B. Their only purpose is to be a sidekick. For me,
Mhm.
I'm like, fuck that. Like, I want to be a main character. What is this? Like, you know what I mean? Or they have a magical power,
Yeah,
but it's only there to help someone else.
I
It's
can't imagine. That must be so frustrating.
it's annoying. It's annoying. But also like I think that's why for me, when I found your booktube, I think I was in college. I think I was a sophomore in college.
Oh.
And I was looking for like books in the library I was working in. And I'm like, I want a thriller. I need to feel fast paced. I found your booktube, and like the level of diversity, the amount of different authors that you were constantly talking about, and the details that you had for each story, it felt like having a friend like from across the line.
Oh.
And it was just, you were just so inclusive from the very beginning, and so thoughtful about like how certain characters are being portrayed, and calling things out when they don't make sense. Not every book is a 5 star, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And I loved how honest you were, and you still are. It's so cool. So
I
thank
appreciate you saying that. I really do, because I do try to be diverse, but I'm like so ashamed because in this top 10, I don't think I have any Black authors. Now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm like,
it's okay.
no.
It's
But
okay. Well,
if
that's
we
another list. That's
if
another
we're
day.
going to talk about horror, I mean, Tenantery of Dew. I will go on for days about Tenantery of Dew. I love her so much. Um,
Yeah.
but
She came
again,
up in another episode literally yesterday that I recorded. Someone brought her up in another episode. And I was like, as you should. As you
mhm.
should.
She's amazing. But
Yeah.
she writes so human. Like her writing is so human. And it's also like I consider that horror more. So otherwise I would have added her on this list for sure. But the way it's like drama, but it's also the Black experience, but it's also so like it makes sense to anyone. Like it's like we are relating on a human level
Mm.
as well. You know, it's not just like if you haven't experienced this, you're not going to understand, because I feel like she has helped me understand so much about the Black experience that I would never otherwise understand or be able to, you know. Um,
It's a broad thing. I could even say, like, if I read a book that has representation about an element of your life that I have not personally experienced, um, it's very broad. Like the same way you could discuss like thrillers, there's horror, there's sci-fi, there's feminist rage, there's queer representation. There's so many like genres. Being Black is a beautiful, wonderful thing, but it's also very vast. Same thing with like being a woman. There is a million ways to be a woman. There is a million ways to experience this body and this mind and this life. But I think something we can all agree on is like not only rage, but also like
yeah.
creation, like creating stories, creating art, creating your booktube, creating a platform as a safe space, to talk
Mhm.
about different stories. A lot of people, I grew up thinking that like I couldn't read thrillers and horrors. That was a huge scaredy cat. Like, how would I even get into it? I didn't know where to start. And
Uh-huh.
I found your booktube and I found that starting point. You know what I
Oh,
mean? So that's really cool. Like to have someone recommend something and be very thoughtful and intentional with that. That is universal. And so like it's so interesting because now I'm over here like horror here, thriller there, let's go. And it's freeing to be able to be scared and afraid of something and read about it, but face it head on as well. That is actually really grounding, especially for someone with anxiety. It's like, okay, we can get through this. Like, it's gonna get better, right? So we can pace ourselves. So
but also like when you're reading a story, you are practicing your anxiety.
yeah.
You're playing out what would happen in the situation, but in within a book, you can close it whenever you want. This is a safe space. Like I know there's no actual danger here. And so for me, that's what opens up the door for you to explore these different emotions and connections and like
Mm.
your relationship to the thing that does scare you because like I'm not unafraid. Like these things in real life do scare me, but I feel like if it's a book, like I'm in a safe space to explore that without being in actual danger. And I do feel like a lot of people who like thrillers, who like horror books are tend to be more like anxious, you know?
Yeah.
And I do think that, some of it is just for me anyway, I can't speak for everyone, but some of it is just this instinctual like fascination with the things that are like taboo, I guess. Like, oh, but also it is dealing with these emotions and the fact that horror, mostly horror, but thriller also sometimes there's like so much crossover between like things that are supernatural or like things that we're going through in life that you can just create this metaphor so easily.
Mm.
And yeah, that's why I think like the books that I do tend to love have more of like a critique on society or have something to say or have some kind of emotional resonance.
Ooh, I feel that way too. And I think that oddly enough, horror and thriller has given me a lot more like confidence. And it's also like talks about subjects that I didn't necessarily hear every day in my personal life. Like
Mhm.
for me, like memory recall, how my siblings remember things and how I remember things, the
Mhm.
complex relationship you have with your parents.
Mhm.
That's what Play Nice gave me. It put me in a position where I had to think about certain childhood memories that maybe I didn't want to think about.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, like this scares me. Why does this scare me so much? It wasn't necessarily the demon. It was the you don't remember that, right? And I was like, don't like that. It was one of those things where it was like, oh, this is making me uncomfortable, and why does it make me feel that way? And same thing with movies like Obsession that we're seeing come out about men's worst nightmare is a crazy girlfriend.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, what did you do to put her in that position where she is now in this place? Like your wish is to take control of a woman, to make her your dream girl. What about her? What about what she wants?
Mhm.
And like autonomy of women. That movie made a lot of people uncomfortable. And now
I
we're
did,
seeing
I did
like
see that movie, and yeah, and I've heard the very same critique of that too.
100%. It's
Yeah.
making people uncomfortable, but it should. That's my thing. It should, you know. Also, like, it's cool because we're also seeing like seeing that film made me think about the same dread I felt in Play Nice. Instead of a
Mhm.
haunted house, it's a haunted person. Like she's. It's come out recently. A lot of things about that movie that this person is not haunted. It's a wish. It's a wish gone wrong, but it's
Mhm.
a wish from a someone who wants to be loved and is not considering who they're asking that from, like what she wants. It's only
Mhm.
about his desire, about his wants, and how terrifying that would be. So it was interesting, and like seeing things like Leviticus is coming out soon about queerness and about that's actually coming out soon. Yeah, it's about two boys who are like teenagers in the South, and all I know is that one of the boys is going through an exorcism in his church, and it like winks to the idea of like, ooh, like conversion therapy. Is this about like his queerness? But he's
Mhm.
saying no, like there is a demon posing as me. It looks just like me. And it may flirt with you. And it, yeah,
Victorian.
it's a demon that looks just like this teenage boy. And he's like, if you see it outside your window, if you see it like smiling at you, it's not me. It looks just like me though. And
Uh,
the main character has a crush on this boy, and he's not sure which boy he's interacting with, the one who's going through this like experience in his church trying to like fight
mhm.
this, or the version of him that is like sweet and thoughtful and out and like kind of not afraid of this part of himself. Which version is the demon?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, and the director, this is very ballsy, like to do an entire film under a biblical term that is all about the sin of queerness. I
Oh,
was
okay.
like,
I was just gonna say, isn't
yeah.
Leviticus like a Bible verse or
Yes,
like a
yes. I
chapter?
don't quote me because I'm not a hardcore like I know every term. But I remember I heard the name of the movie and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, is this the one where it's like if they two lie together, it is sin? Yes, that is what this is. The title of the movie is the biblical term all about how like queerness is this wrong, unnatural thing. And the demon in the story apparently plays off of this sense of like the town's fears versus what
Mhm.
he actually is, which is two boys in love, and how bad would that be? It's not, but from the lens of horror, what would that feel like? What would that look like when you're still finding out who you are in a
Mhm.
small town where everyone's telling you this is wrong versus what you're feeling on the inside? Like what would that feel like from a horror perspective? I'm so excited, like, to see that on screen. And there's I've heard moments of tenderness and care. It's not to harm the queer community. So I'm very open and excited for that. Same thing with Obsession.
Mm,
um it was interesting to see from a woman's perspective, what would it be like to walk to your front door and say goodbye to a guy friend, and he wishes that you loved him more than anyone in the world. Meanwhile, you view him as a friend, just a
mhm,
friend. What would it be like if now you on the inside is trapped and you on the outside is his dream girlfriend?
Terrifying.
It would be terrifying. But for
It's
him,
like
he's like, oh my
having
god, she loves me, guys. Like, what is this? I'm telling you. So I'm excited to read and hear about your thriller recommendations. But yes, all things horror, all things thriller, and everything in between. But I want to go into your thriller top 10
okay.
right now.
Yes,
So
let's
yeah,
do it.
tell me what your first pick is.
Okay. Do you want me to? Okay, the first one I actually don't have a physical copy of, but
Okay.
do you want me to? I was thinking maybe I could like read the description of it and then like tell you how I feel about it after.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to start with 10. Again, these are not in order, but number 10.
Okay.
Number 10 is going to be one that's a little bit more accessible, I feel like, to thriller readers. Um, and this is just, it's a pretty easy premise. This is Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney. Have you read
Ooh.
this?
No.
Okay, so I think it's set in, I want to say it's set in like London or it's in the UK or somewhere. Um, but so this is what it's about. We're following Pete Wryly, and he answers the door one morning, and he lets in a parent's worst nightmare. On his doorstep is Miles Lambert, a stranger who breaks the devastating news that Pete's son Theo isn't actually his son. So he is the Lambert's son, and they were switched at birth. There was been an issue in the hospital, and he's telling him now, like that son that you've been raising is not yours, it's mine. And in fact, we have your biological son. So these families are obviously like both in shock and they're like, what do you do? There's so many moral implications of this because I think their kids are like 2.5. They're like toddlers or maybe 2.5, 3 years old. Um, and also the kids both have disabilities. Now, Theo, who was raised by Pete Wryly and his wife, gosh, his wife, what is her name? Mm, Lucy. Oh
I'm
God.
sitting here like, even that situation is terrifying. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to read it because it's throwing me off. But so basically what this comes down to is like I have never ever felt so furious. Like the rage that this inspired in me was just awesome. It was out of this world. Like I it comes down to like personality types, and one is a narcissist and one is has empathy, um, more sensitive. And it comes down to like manipulation. Like they go through this, all of this stuff, and they think that they're trying to set it up so that they can, have this blended family. Like, oh, we'll just be in each other's lives. It's fine. But then things start to go wrong. And I don't want to say too much, but like the twists and turns in this one absolutely shocked me. I was like jaw on the floor. And then I only just recently realized that this also does have a adaptation, a miniseries adaptation, but it's on BritBox, it's on ITV. And I started watching it last night actually, and it's pretty good, but I gotta say, it doesn't the adaptation does not give you the amount of like rage that I felt. Like you don't get inside their heads, obviously. The book's always better. I mean, that's what we say. But like you don't understand like the amount of manipulation. You don't understand like the depth of these two children's needs. And there's also a big difference in the wealth of the families. One family is very well off, one family is not. So yeah, I don't want to go too far into it, but if you are looking for a thriller that's going to be like twisty turny and then also has like all of these like moral complications and dilemmas, then this one is really good.
Ooh. And what was the title of that one again?
And that is Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney.
That sounds amazing. I'm like, ooh, that's an impossible decision. It's like, would you rather save the one person or the five? Like, what's the value of a human life? That's a horrible question to ask. Oh, no.
They've both been screwed over, you know, they've both
Yeah.
been cheated in this situation. But you've already built this relationship with this child, and that is your child. And to you, you are their mom and their dad, you know, and it's like, oh man, it's gotta be rough.
I genuinely cannot even imagine. Okay, I'm so excited to find out what your next choice is because you've already started off with such a good like pick. So I'm like, ooh, what's next?
Okay, so there are some along similar lines, but this next one is going to lean into more of the creepy child
Ooh,
genre of thrillers.
okay.
And I actually haven't reread this one in a while, but I really need to. But that is The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. Have you read this?
I've heard of it. I heard it's along the same lines as Baby Teeth. Am I
It's
close?
better than Baby Teeth, though.
Okay, okay. I've heard them compared, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
if it's like that, I don't want it. This is different. I like that. Okay. Creepy
Well,
kids are pretty creepy, so I'm here for it. Let's go. What is this
so
about?
yeah, like a lot of people do compare it to Baby Teeth by I think her name's Zoya Stage or something similar to that. But yeah, The Perfect Child. This is by Lucinda Berry. I read this a couple years ago and it messed me up. Okay, so let me tell you the description here. Um, so you have this young couple and they're desperate to have a child of their own. And this is a consequence of or we're showing the unsettling consequences of getting what they always wanted. Like, don't be afraid what you ask for, type of thing. Like, be careful what you ask for. So you're following Christopher and Hannah, and they're very happily married, surgeon and a nurse with picture perfect lives. And all that's missing is a child. And so when Janie, an abandoned 6-year-old, turns up at the hospital, Christopher forms an instant connection with this child. And she's, of course, like emaciated and she's just like been through so much. And he just, wants to like take care of her. And so he convinces Hannah that they should take her home as their own child. But Janie is no ordinary child, and her damaged psyche proves to be more than her new parents were expecting. So Janie is fiercely devoted to Christopher, but she acts out in increasingly disturbing ways, and she's directing all of her rage at Hannah. So she's also like very manipulative, and she's not able to bond with Janie, and Hannah is drowning under the pressure, and Christopher refuses to see Janie's true nature. So it is like very frustrating because like you know what's happening and she's desperately saying like please believe me, this is what's happening and not be believed. So there is some gaslighting at this. I guess I should warn other people for that. Um, but yeah, I when I finished this, I was just jaw on the floor, like, oh my gosh, what did I just read? What on earth did I just read? And Lucinda Berry is one of those authors where she is not afraid to go dark. She is a former, I can't remember exactly what her position was, but she's a psychologist or a psychiatrist and has worked with children who have been through a lot of trauma. And boy, does she go there. Like you can tell she gets into like the littlest like thing. She perfectly explains like the psychological, like you never are left wondering what's
Ooh, this
going
is exciting. This
on.
sounds really good. I'm
Yeah.
adding it to my TBR.
So that is The Perfect Child, Hannah Bauer #1. So she's released recently a #2, which goes, I think, and tells you more of like the story before this, but I've not read it yet.
Oh,
But there's
okay.
a second book out now.
Like a prequel.
Yeah, like a prequel, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Mhm.
Dang. That means I mean like why is this getting me the same vibes? You know what horror I cannot watch again? A horror film, Orphan. You
Mhm.
heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one where I'm like,
It's very
uh,
much same vibes. Yeah.
that was one of the first horror movies I ever saw. Sorry, mom, she's totally gonna hear this. I saw this at a friend's house. I slept over at a friend's house.
Oh
I
my
was not
God.
allowed to sleep over at a lot of friends, but I slept over at a friend's house, and her parents were the cool parents,
Yeah. How
where they
old were
were. I what? I was maybe 13, maybe
you?
13.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, and I remember she was that cool girl who had the skinny jeans. She wore eyeliner. It was never smudged. It was like so. I remember like she was the cool girl. The cool. She had
Yeah.
skinny jeans from American Eagle, and she had the cool eyeliner. Like yeah. Anyway, so in my teenage brain, I remember thinking she was the coolest girl ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, her parents, she like told them like, oh yeah, like my parents let me watch this all the time. Her parents were out that night, so it was like us at the house. And I remember we were sitting on her couch, and she had those like I'm in Florida. She had those big glass sliding doors on either side. So her
Mhm.
couch was in this like family room, and on either side it was sliding glass doors. So at night, pitch black. All we could see was the pool and then
Oh, oh,
darkness.
yeah. And then they could
Yeah,
all in. I don't like that.
immediately no. But I was sitting on her couch, in my SpongeBob pajamas, trying to be cool, and I'm looking outside, and I'm like, oh no, I want to call my mom. And she turned on Orphan. She's like, yeah, my parents let me watch this all the time. When I tell you that was a pivotal moment, like we watched Orphan and we watched Final Destination, the first
Mhm.
one, and I was like, I love this, but also I'm so scared right now. I was like,
Yeah.
don't leave me alone. But yeah, I remember watching Orphan and being like, I don't ever want siblings ever again. Be
Mhm.
aware, I would get brothers a few years later. But I was just like, I can't have a sibling. They're gonna try to take me out.
Yeah.
That obviously this is
No.
fiction, but I was like, no, don't bring anyone else in. Don't let her in. But yeah, that was a good horror. Hearing you describe this book, I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't believe her? What do you mean? Like, if we're life partners and I tell you something's off,
Yeah.
believe me. No, what is with these
But
men? Oh,
the girl's very smart though too. She's very smart.
that's so scary. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's great. And as someone who has woken up, like I have a stepdaughter, she's 9, and I can't tell you how many times I have woken up with her standing above me on my bed and just like, I'm hungry. Terrifying. Like, I don't wish that on anyone. And so
Oh
I
my
think these
gosh.
do really like really hit like me in a tender spot. I'm like, oh my gosh, the creepy child trope just gets me. It just like really it hits home hard.
I think for me, possession is what always gets me. Like
Oh,
for
really?
yeah, for me, like with anxiety, I second guess a lot of my decisions. And I'm also a really bad people pleaser. I've only gotten slightly better recently. So I
Same.
read a book called, I think it was called Come Closer.
Yes, by Sarah Gran.
Yeah, I read that a while ago. And like her, if I remember the book correctly, the character blacking out and remembering, like waking up and things are effed up. I
Uh,
was like, oh my gosh, like there are times when like you're super anxious and maybe like I would snap or like, make little snippy comments as a teenager. And I remember thinking like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And then later on, I would like bump into someone and they'd be like, you were really mean or like that wasn't necessary. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like another version of you, like the overstimulated, overwhelmed version where it's
uh,
like you're not like this all the time, but like you were like I was physically too hot or people were speaking all at once and like it was just too much. And I was like, I need a minute. And then maybe my voice came out like higher. I like scrunched away or I wasn't listening. So it's one of those things where like for me, possession, like the concept of not being in control of your own body or what
mm,
you were saying or doing is terrifying. Like
yeah.
it's so scary. So I'm like, oh, what do you mean you blacked out? What do you mean you had a dream and you woke up in the woods?
Mm,
No, but I still read them because I'm like, this is
yeah.
from a distance, from a distance.
Mhm.
But
So
creepy
it
kids.
doesn't scare me as much because I just don't think it's I just don't really believe it, I guess. And so it doesn't like really scare me. I don't know.
I mean, I will also say a creepy kid. Thank God my brothers are teenagers now, but like when they were younger, I think there was that natural sense of like, I just want to protect you and be here for you. Like the love you have for this little person is never ending.
Hmm.
Um, if a kid came to me and was like, this happened to me, that's why Orphan was so terrifying. Because in my
Mm,
head, I'm like, of course you would believe her. Like
yeah.
she's probably gone through a hard life. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like listening to this book and knowing how Orphan ends, I'm like, toss her outside. Who said that? I was like, leave my target. That don't do that. Don't do that. But in these books, I'm like, yeah, maybe you should listen to your wife. Like maybe the person who's like around her quite often, you should give her a chance.
Yeah, for
I,
sure. For
I'm sitting here. I'm like, if your first few books have been this amazing, I cannot imagine what you're going to pull out of the bag next. So, what
sure.
is your recommendation now?
All right, so my next recommendation, and I don't own this book either, so I won't be able to hold it up, but I have Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah. Do you know this author?
I do.
Did I tell you about her
I
before?
think you did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So in this story is probably the most on this list that is edging more on suspense, also legal thriller. This
Mm.
is a legal thriller. And I don't want, like, I feel like so many people, the second you say legal thriller, they're like, nope, done, out. Like, I don't like it. People either love that or hate that aspect. I I don't have a specific affinity for legal thrillers, but I read this one and I really liked it. Um, so we're following Layla Syed, and she receives a call that cleaves her life in two. Her brother-in-law's voice is filled with panic. He's at his son's nursery to pick up Max, but he isn't there. And Layla was supposed to drop Max off that morning. And Layla went and picked him up, and then she continued to drive to work and go in her office building and didn't realize until 3 hours later that she left little Max in the car park in and she's grasping in horror as to what she has done because he's been locked in there for 3 hours on the hottest day of the year and she's too late. So that's how this story starts. It's like the heartstrings are just really being pulled here. And this turns into like this really explosive trial that will tear this family apart. But as the case progresses, it becomes clear that there's more to this incident than meets the eye. And it's just very much like for a while I was like, is this even a thriller or is this suspense or like what? But then when you get to a certain part at the end, it's like the twist absolutely blew my mind and I was like, I cannot believe this. So it's asking a little bit more of you because you have to invest your time more before you get to that part. But if you hang in for this one, oh my gosh, it's so good. And we're following like Layla has grown up. She's Muslim and she's grown up with her sister. I think their mom died, I think, when they were very young, and she's kind of grown up being the older sister to her sister. And so they have this really complicated relationship where she's mother but also sister. And Layla also is having, she and her husband had been trying to get pregnant and they couldn't, and they ended up splitting. And so now that Layla's sister, so this is Layla's sister's baby that she's left out, and it obviously like it's just tearing a hole into this entire family. And there's so much in here too about like being Muslim and how she's like had to really like because her parents died early, and excuse me if I mess up the details, it's been a while since I read it, but she's tried so hard to like make herself a place in this world, and she's worked her butt off. Like Layla just does not stop working. She's just like has this end goal, like I need to be successful, I need to be the parent, I need to be the responsible one. And so she's really just like pushed herself as far as she possibly can to be successful. And the fact that this is happening is just wild. And this is set in London. I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, this one, it does have that legal thriller element. And I actually really do like how in legal thrillers, it's a really good way to get the information across that you want because you literally have like one person on the stand at a time and you're getting that person's perspective. So much like any kind of book that has a multiple person POV, there are things that are left out in between in the gaps. And then we later come to find out like what was really happening, what were really the dynamics, and who is hiding what, and they all have secrets. So yeah, that is Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah. or Abdullah. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly.
The moment you said she picked him up, I was like, I got a bad feeling. I got a bad feeling.
Yeah, devastating. Like emotionally devastating. I can't, like, I don't know how I would go on if I
I
just.
don't even know. I can't even imagine. I also think that like for any like for anyone who's like cared for a baby or cared for a small child, like the level of things you're juggling all at once and the lack of sleep and just like there's a million things going on.
Mm,
Um, I all I could think about is like they were attached on the hip. Like I would not let those boys like, and there was two. So in my mind, I'm like, wherever you go, I go. Like
mm,
I that's my worst nightmare. Like that's one of those things where it's like, what's the darkest a story can go? I think it's like, especially in thrillers or horror, it's like kids,
mhm,
older adults, and I think as well like folks with disabilities are just everyone's very vulnerable.
mhm,
So it's the vulnerable character becoming at the heart of the like sadder elements of the story or loss or passing or death. I think it's one of those things where it hits you right in the heart. Like how are you not going to feel for that or feel for that person or that element of the story? Same thing with like I think in movies like Sinners, where the youngest character in the story, people are sacrificing themselves to protect this person
mm,
from violence. So it's one of those things where I'm like, what is going to make you care? I think having a kid involved is going to make you care. Having an older adult who may be vulnerable, or a person with special needs, or who is maybe trusting in the wrong person, is unaware they are in danger. It's moments like that where I'm like, whoa, like you got my attention, and I'm terrified and scared for this character, this person. That sounds like you will not stop reading. Also, you said legal thriller, and I was like, I hear Viola Davis in the distance. I'm just like, you know who could solve this?
mm.
Viola Davis could solve
Yeah.
this.
That's
So yeah, I feel like she would have this down pat. Be like, you did what? And she'd like call the girl from Scandal. She'd book Olivia Pope, be like, handle it. You know what I mean? Like get all the information. You know what? I've never read a legal thriller before, but I'm not opposed to it. I'm not. So who
honestly,
knows?
like maybe like it's kind of making a little bit more sense like how I like to feel my heart. Like I like when I say these are dark, like this is what I mean. That is so dark, you
That
know? But
that is pretty dark. I think as
yes.
well, like you said it's set in the UK. I
Hmm.
think the only thriller I can think of set in the UK that was also pretty dark and a good twist was Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. I
I
don't
don't
know.
get
The
that.
cover is like, I'm a visual person. The cover is like someone's hands over a keyboard and a light like shining on her, like at night, like from a computer. I actually interviewed that author. Megan is so freaking cool. She's a queen. But Cross My Heart is about a girl who has a heart transplant. She thought she went through a really bad breakup and she thought that she was just experiencing deep depression and emotional pain, but it turned out she was actually experiencing real physical pain. And she ends up getting a heart transplant. She had a health issue, and she ends up getting a heart transplant, and she is able to go on this online platform for the loved ones whose donors were the people who donated organs. So she's
Uh-huh.
able to message the person who was the husband of the person who donated their heart. Yes, that is the book. So freaking
I
good. One of my
haven't I
favorite.
want to read.
It is very good. So she ends up messaging the husband on this organ donation website, pretty much just thanking him for his loved ones. She had passed away, and she's like, if you're loved, thank you for your loved ones' heart, because now I'm able to live my life and this and that. And they end up corresponding through this website, and she's very lonely, and she's been through a lot, and she may or may not begin to develop feelings and
Okay.
a fascination with the husband of the woman whose heart she currently has. You think
Okay.
you think this is going in a certain direction. I
Okay.
promise you it is not. It
Yeah.
is giving you but Uno reverse card from a woman's perspective
Okay.
who
Oh,
wants to be.
you like the show slash
You
book?
like the show, not the book, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
you like the show because you get from her perspective what is going from cute to creepy.
Hmm.
You are getting from the husband's perspective what he thinks this woman is like, his fantasy of her.
Mm.
And you are getting from the perspective of close friends and family in certain little snippets where it's like, we love you and we know you're lonely. And the heart of the story is about what I find fascinating: to find a crazy woman,
Mm-hmm.
what put her in that position, what made her feel that way, and from what perspective is she crazy? Is she crazy to the love interest, or is she crazy like inside? Like, I feel like I'm going out of my mind, like with loneliness or with the expectation of bringing someone home. Um, it was so good. Female friendship in the story was also amazing. Like the element of female friendship, wanting to be loved in a familial way, wanting to be loved by your friends, wanting to be loved in a romantic way, and this sense of loneliness. That was one of my favorite books I read, and it has a really interesting perspective on love and what you're willing to do to be loved, from a friend, from a loved one, from your parents, like what you would be willing to do to be accepted. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it was so good. It was so good. And like societal expectations of love and what success is in love. The character talks about a picture frame in her family's home, and she's like, my siblings got married or they did A, B, and C, and there's this picture frame and I should be in that frame. I should have A, B, and C. Like I should have done these things and I should, A, B, and C. And you're discovering that like she's seeking love at a certain expense of her own self-respect and of like boundaries, because she just wants this person to see her and love her, and like, what are you willing to do to get there? She works in a wedding dress shop. Like she works in a space where they sell this vision of the perfect day, the perfect moment. um and she's missing the forest for the trees, and who is watching her in that forest, and who is she watching? It is so good. Like, who is being hunted here? Oh, it was so good. Like, I
Yeah,
highly recommend checking it out. Also, there are certain characters in the book that I think you would appreciate because they say things and it can be taken in two very different ways. Like, from
okay.
one character's perspective, it's like, I really love you, but I think this is getting out of control, like in a funny way, versus I really love you, I think you're getting out of control. It is so like the way people speak versus
Mhm.
the way you get the perspective what they actually meant in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's called Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. We did a non-spoiler episode together on the podcast, and she gave me like her what inspired the thriller and how she builds a thriller. So you
Hmm.
can listen to the episode and then read the book. But
Yeah.
like, if I were you, go in blind, circle
Okay.
back. Go in blind, circle back. She's also a super sweet person. So it's just great. She's like, yeah, I did A, B, and C, but also like I hope you have a great day. She's like a really kind person. She's like, I
Aw.
went to the darkest corners of the earth and I did that twist, but also like my heart is full of sunshine. I'm like, as it should be, duality. But yeah, I'm sitting here like I will give you a dark thriller for a dark thriller. So yeah, what is your next book choice?
Okay, so my next choice is this is gonna be my first like really big name author, and I don't know how I should present this. Um, I felt like this was a good opportunity to talk about some underrated thriller works by Stephen King. Because, like I said, I was like, I'm being very specific about what is considered a thriller or not. And there are some of King's books that I do consider thrillers. And one of them that I think is really underrated is Mr. Mercedes. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard of it. I have heard of it.
Okay, I think it's a three-book trilogy, but the first one is I've read the first two. I haven't finished after that. Um, but we're essentially this is a procedural. So we're following this ex-cop. He's retired and his name's Bill Hodges. He's like the main character of this story. And he is one of those cops that's like threw his life into his work. And so now that he's retired, he's honestly like he's not married, or I think maybe something happened with his wife in the past, and he's alone. He's got a turtle in his backyard that he hangs out with sometimes, but he's having issues with his mental health because he now feels like he doesn't have a purpose. Well, when he was still on the job, there was this killer called the Mercedes Killer, and they called him that because they stole a Mercedes and then drove up to this place. where it was like this line for a job fair and ran them over, backed up, ran them over again. There were children in there, there were moms, there were dads. Like he just thoughtlessly killed all these people and they never caught him. So now that Bill Hodges has retired, this is like the one that got like the case that, he couldn't solve. And now the killer has reached out to him and is taunting him. And also in this story, we do get the perspective of the killer. It's not a who done it. It's a why done it, and it's so messed up. Like Stephen King goes dark. This is dark too. Like he has a very inappropriate and messed up relationship with his mother. He is definitely giving incel vibes. He's giving like he could, blow up a school or something, and obviously, or run a bunch of people over with a Mercedes. Um, and there's also another character that's introduced in this book for the first time, and that is Holly Gibney. And Holly is one of my very favorite characters. She's been in several of his books since this. She has her own book called Holly. I have not read all of them. The only other one with her in it that I've read, I think, is The Outsiders. Um, and like I said, I'm not like the end all be all of Stephen King fans. Like I've not read all of his books. I've read quite a few of them, but there's so many, so prolific. But Holly is obviously neurodivergent and she's socially awkward. She has a bunch of little like tics and stuff that she does. And I love her because King is introducing us to this character. She ultimately comes together with Bill and this other kid, and they form this like ragtag team to like find this killer, right? So I love that Holly is not this like, you know, steely-eyed detective and she's got all this like courage and she's kind of frail and anxious, but she also like the other side of that is that she's so good at pattern recognition. She's very detail oriented. She can see the little things that other people miss, and she's almost got her like little bit of like this is how do I explain it? Like her little bit of magic because of her neurodivergence. And so I really love her. Um, yeah, and this also does have an adaptation. I think it's on HBO. It might not be, but
Ooh.
Just as Dark, the adaptation is really good. I haven't watched the whole thing, but yeah, very good. And I think this is underrated because Stephen King, oftentimes, he's just known for his thrillers, or I mean, for his horror books, for Misery, for The Shining, for all of that. But like, this is a procedural, a serial killer procedural with a perspective of the killer. And I feel like it's so underrated in like the thriller community. So I wanted to mention it. And that is
Ooh.
Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King.
I will add it to my TBR. I have read Carrie. I think I have read Misery. It's been a while.
Mhm.
But I think my biggest thing is like I feel like Stephen King takes up so much space in a way that sometimes I feel people think of horror thriller, they only think of him.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here, I'm like, he's I'm sure he's great, but there's
Mhm.
also like a lot of amazing other authors, but a lot of them were influenced by his writing or read it at a young age. So for me, it's like, you know what? I think that I've given it some time, I've given
Mhm.
it some perspective, and I want to get out of my comfort zone and give him another try.
Mhm.
I'm older now. Maybe I'll vibe with it, if you will.
Mhm.
But I know that I love Joe Hill's work, and I know he's a separate author entirely, but he's the son of Stephen King, and I love the way that he writes for, and I'm sure he was somewhat influenced by his dad. Don't quote me, but like
Mhm.
Mr. Mercedes sounds really good. Why is he giving me like Mindhunter vibes?
It
But if
kind
they
of,
retired,
yeah, but he's retired, but he's still got connections.
yeah,
And like, you're not on the force anymore. Like, go retire. And like, yeah,
I'm into it though. Like I
thing,
wanna I wanna read that. It sounds good. The way you're telling it, I'm like, and I'll take that one too. Like, yes.
and I
Every
feel
book you say you
like
sound good. It sounds good.
when I first started reading King, like I kind of felt that same way. Like, okay, whatever, Stephen King. But I don't know at what point it was. I just started reading a couple of his books, and I don't know which book it was. It might have been Misery that really like made it feel differently, or The Shining even. I love the world of The Shining. Um, But he does, like, he is that famous for a reason too. Like in his, obviously, like some of his stuff didn't age well. But he does show the underdog and he does, go into really deep emotional depth with his characters, which I love. For me, and in the same way that Tananarive Due does, I feel like Stephen King does that too. Like they're
Mm.
just really, really character specific. Like you really care about his characters and connect to them. Or at least
I'm
I
willing to give it a try. I read The Outsider and I enjoyed that. So I'm
do.
sitting here and I'm like, I also read Doctor Sleep. I enjoyed Doctor Sleep. And I loved the film adaptation too. I know it's not exactly the same, but I had a good time. I was like, no, no, I'm not mad at it. And of
Love that
course,
world.
The Shining. I grew up with the movie. And my grandma's a huge fan of Stephen King. She does live in the woods and she does own a lot of his books. But she's like happy with the vibes and is unaware of the spooky. It's very cozy actually. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know what? I will give him another try. You know, when you read a book when you're younger and you're not a big fan of it, and then you get older and you're like, you know what? I'll give that same book another try. Maybe I'll view it differently now. I'm like, maybe I should try that with this author. Like, maybe I will feel a little differently if I try his other work. So, yeah.
Also, like you're never going to be able to read it until that little piece of your brain is like, okay, now's the time. Because like at
Yeah.
that point you like there's so many new and exciting things. It's hard once you've already picked up a book to like find the time to like, okay, let me take this chance when you're like so excited about like whatever's coming out and all these other things. I know that's difficult because I've dealt with that as well, but
I do feel that way, but I also think that when a book really sucks me in, nothing can pull me out of it. I feel almost like I'm in that world.
yeah,
And when I'm reading that book, I'm in that world. And when I close the book for a moment, I pause the movie. That's what it feels like in my mind.
yeah.
But some books, I try to pause the movie, and it's like I want to know what happens next. So it like pulls me back in. Godfather style, it pulls me back in. So I think I'm definitely willing to give one of his books a try. That's honestly how I felt about like Cackle by Rachel Harris, and that's how I felt about Jackal by Aaron E. Adams. There's a lot of books where I'm like I thought about it. The Guest List by Lucy Foley.
Mm,
There were certain books where I was reading them and I'm like, I have to stop life. But then it just
yeah.
pulls me back in. So I'm excited to read these books that you're mentioning because I'm like, every single one of them sounds like a banger. It sounds amazing. So I'm like, give them to me all. What is your next book choice?
Okay, so we are down to number 6, and I do have a copy of this one.
Ooh.
And again, this is like a tonal shift into something that is more character focused, I guess. And that is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. Have you read this one?
On my TBR.
Oh, okay.
I know that one.
I don't think this one's for everybody necessarily. It is, like I said, it gets really dark. But again, like I mentioned before with Holly Gibney being neurodivergent, I feel like this character is also neurodivergent. And that is kind of a point of contention, I guess, too, because I made a video that was like autism representation in books that I related to as an autistic person, and I included this one. And then I did get some feedback that like, well, a lot of these symptoms are can also be a result of just trauma, which she has obviously been through. So I don't want to like try and diagnose her or anything, but my autistic experience, I related to her like so much. And that's just from my own perspective. But this is a story about Sally Diamond, and she doesn't understand why what she did was so strange because she was only doing what her father told her to do to put him out with the rubbish when he died. This is set in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. Now Sally's the center of attention because she literally like just put his body in the burn pile and was like, well, that's what he said to do, but she doesn't understand like that's not what is right. And so like the media is surrounding her and they're all like, who is this person? Who is this person that is like just does this to their father? How can you be so careless? How can you be so unkind? And she's just so confused. So she was raised by two parents. Her mom passed away and her dad was a sort of psychologist or scientist of sorts. And after he dies, he leaves her these letters and he says only open them up like once every week or once every 2 weeks, and he's really prepared her for his exit. And as she starts opening these letters, she's learning more and more and more about herself. She's also having somebody contact her that seems to know more about her past than she even does. And then at the same time, we're following, what is the other perspective? It is, yeah, I can't remember what the other perspective is that we're following, but we're following like basically another story. And we don't learn until kind of later on, oh, Peter, we're following Peter. And we don't really learn till later on how they are connected. But I will say about this is that this really explores um, the fine line between a victim and a perpetrator. Like, really goes into, like, I like to say with like mental health stuff, like, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility, right? And like certain things, people go through trauma and it changes them. It absolutely changes them, one way or another, it's going to. But we also are still responsible for the choices we make after that, right? And so this is kind of exploring the dynamic of like what, like I said before, like what's good and bad. At what point do you, after you're victimized, you know, um, there is, how do I explain this? There's like just this very fine line that once you cross it, like you are now making choices that make you like you're wrong. You are in the wrong. And this is kind of how we create villains. Like nobody starts out evil. It's just like, you made that decision and now you're on the other side of it. Sorry, bud. Like that's kind of how it works. Like you made that choice and you have to be responsible for your behavior. And this one really delves into that, like that difference between like a flawed human and a victim, and then like how that person can then go from that to being the perpetrator and the person that's wrong. And so, I guess that along with just like how much I related to Sally, this really did it for me. Like I was in awe of this. And then the way that they're connected is kind of shocking towards the end as well. But this one I would say is more about um, trauma and how you work past that. And you're also learning about her past and her life and just like the trials that we all go through, and especially Sally in this time of her life. But yeah, that is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent.
That has been on my personal list of books to read for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, maybe it's time to move it up.
Ooh.
So also the way you describe all these books is divine. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm never gonna financially
Oh,
recover from this. But
yeah, failing. So
I'm gonna find them. I will find them at my library, or I will try to find them used. But Strange Sally Diamond sounds absolutely amazing. Like there's a hold at my library for it. It was like 44 weeks, and I was like, too long.
long time.
It's a 19-week wait. I apologize. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, but
It usually goes faster than that, though, I will say, for
I'm
live.
gonna I'm gonna place a hold because I'm like, it's worth it. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, I must know what your next bookish choice is because you're just going from like cooler to cooler.
Okay, yeah, well, it's gonna get darker now still. Uh,
Okay.
I have, let me see, 5 more books to talk about.
Okay. Let's go through them. I'm
Okay, so
excited.
first we have The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Michallon, which
I've
I'm
heard of it.
pronouncing. This is set in New York, and we are following. Actually, the interesting part of this is that we get the perspectives of all women in this story. But the center focus here, I guess maybe not, but the connection between these women is this man, Aidan Thomas. And he's this very hardworking guy. He's a family man. He's like the guy around town in this like small town where like if you need, if you got a flat tire, you can call him and he's going to come help you out. Um, and then he's always, got a good word for everyone, but Aiden has a dark secret as well, and he has been kidnapping women. He's a kidnapper, he's a serial killer. He has killed 8 women, and he currently has a ninth in his shed that he's been keeping for some years. Now, the inciting incident here is that Aiden's wife dies, And I should mention he also has a 13-year-old daughter. But when his wife dies, he ends up having to move out of this house. And he doesn't know what to do with this woman that's in his shed, right? And so he decides to introduce her to his daughter as like a family friend. She's going to be staying with us and this and that. And he's assuming that she's been there for so long that she's like brainwashed. She's not going to try to run. She's not going to like do anything. But, he's wrong. And then we also have the perspective. So we get her perspective. And in her perspective, the woman in the shed, everything's in second person. And it's like, it makes it even more terrifying because she's like, you walked down the street and you did this, and then you thought you were doing that right, but then you got away from you and you got stuck up and you got caught in this situation. And now that, and so she's saying, you did this, you, to the point it's like, I felt like I was her, like as I'm reading it, I'm like, ah,
Like she's separate. Oh my gosh, that's heartbreaking. Oh, that's so spooky as well.
yes. And then so we're
Ooh.
getting her perspective, we're getting this perspective of the 13-year-old daughter, and then there's also another woman whose perspective we're getting who owns a local bar, and she is kind of flirting with this guy that comes in. Oh, hi, kitty cat.
Oh, he was like spooky. Yeah, I'm in.
She ends up developing a crush on Aiden. And we kind of see, we get her perspective as she is like from the outside looking in, what he looks like from the townspeople's point of view. And then we get what he looks like from the daughter and the imprisoned, imprisoned woman in his shed. Uh,
Ooh.
yeah, this one moved me. Like it really like hit home so hard. And it's 300 pages. It's right in the sweet spot. And I love that we're getting like there are just some like really different and unique things that she's doing with this. And it it's hit its points so hard. Like I felt it. So as far as like the like catching my like empathy and like having something to say and social commentary, this one really does that well.
Oh,
And that is The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Michallon.
that is giving me the same dread as Obsession, where it's like he's
Uh,
like, yeah, I can have my daughter talk to the girl that I'm holding hostage. I'm like, what? No. Someone throw him in jail, please. No. Free her. No. Okay. I'm
there
sitting here
is,
now and I'm like, I need it. I need your next book ASAP because like every single one of these books, I'm like, on to my Christmas list. Never
nice.
ending.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one. Okay, this one, I feel like if you have watched my channel, you've heard me talk about it a million times. I could not have it on this list, and that is Pretty Girls by Karin Slaughter. Karen Slaughter in general, love her if you like a procedural, or if you don't like a procedural. She's got like something for everyone. She, again, so character driven and so dark. Like this one, there's a scene in here that is, how, there's a torture scene in here that I still cannot get over. Like, it is so disturbing. I don't know how she even comes up with this stuff, but so it gets there, it goes there, it's so dark. But generally, what this is about sisters. And um, we're following Claire and Lydia, and it's been 20 years since they last spoke. Claire is a glamorous trophy wife of an Atlanta millionaire. So this is set in Atlanta. Lydia is a single mother. She's dating an ex-con, and she struggles to make ends meet, but neither has recovered from the disappearance of their sister Julia 2 decades ago. And the shocking murder of Claire's husband brings the horror and heartbreak of the past roaring back into their lives. The vanishing of a teenage girl and the killing of a middle-aged man, almost a quarter century apart. What could connect them? As they form a wary truce, the surviving sisters unearth the secrets that destroyed their family all those years ago and find the astonishing truth where they least expect it. So, like, you have these journeys as these sisters, too, because they have grown apart over all of this. Like this destroyed their family when they were young, the disappearance and of their sister, and they really never solved it. And they're both broken, and so this is kind of like the death of Claire's husband kind of brings them together and it allows them to see each other from a different perspective for the first time, and they end up teaming up and trying to figure out what's going on. I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm like, how do I get
You
there?
you that's
Um,
one of the books that is like forbidden to me.
yeah.
I know how it ends because a good friend of mine read it when we were too young and told me a play by play of what happened.
Mm,
And that's one of those books that you never forget. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, she told me what happened. She was the original spoiler.
yeah.
Shout out Sam if you're listening. But yes, she I think she read that and told me about it.
Ooh,
And I was just like, whoa. Yeah, whoa. Also, like, as she was describing like sisterhood and like siblings in that story, I just remember thinking at the time I didn't have siblings. So like I
mm,
knew a life before siblings and now I know a life with siblings. And it's like it is genuinely your worst nightmare. Like if I had kids, I don't know if it would be the same level, but like the thought of losing a sibling is like losing part of your own like soul like, or a personality or like an element of yourself. Like a puzzle, like a part of your heart is missing. Like the concept of something happening you just don't know is unthinkable.
mm,
It's one of those things where in a thriller or in a horror story, it's like it's terrifying because it could happen and it's so scary. So I remember hearing about that book and I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're going as dark as you can. If this is an iceberg, we're underwater. We are going to the deepest levels. I'm sitting here and I'm like, what will she throw at us next? How deep under the iceberg are we going? So where are we going to next? I'm like, I'm excited for it.
right. So I have three more at this point.
Okay.
My next one, I think you and I did discuss this last time we talked, at least in passing. And this is my favorite book by this author, which absolutely needed to be included on this list.
Ooh.
It's Dark Places by Gillian Flynn.
Yes.
And once again, it's dark. Gillian Flynn, though, she's so good. I wish she would write
She is.
more books. I really do. Um,
Yeah.
this one I feel like is not as talked about from
Agree.
Gone Girl obviously is talked about all the time. And then the next most popular I would say is Sharp Objects. But this one is my favorite of hers. And that's because we're following, first of all, the main character, her name's Libby Day. And she was 7 years old when her brother massacred her family while she hid in a cupboard. And her evidence helped put him away. But ever since then, she's been drifting for the last 20 years. She's like in her 30s, early 30s when we come into the story. And she has been surviving on the proceeds from the Libby Day Fund. Like when all of this happened, like her entire family was massacred. And of course, the like public came and, wrapped their arms around her and like started a fund and said, let me help you. But she's not done anything with her life. And she is obviously traumatized. She is morally gray. I think a lot of people maybe just don't like her personality, and maybe that's why they don't like this one as much. But I love that she has a character arc, and we're, bless you. And
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. My cat is sitting here so happy. Meanwhile, I'm like, your fur. But please go ahead. I think I heard this one became a film with Charlize Theron,
yeah.
and I've been meaning to watch it because I read the book. I
Ooh.
agree. I don't think Dark Places gets enough love. I also think that Sharp Objects was so iconic that it's hard to uh like sophomore book situation, like where it's like, oh, that was so good. How do you follow it up? I'm of the grown up girl. The grown up is one of my favorite
Yeah,
Gillian Flynn
I
books.
love the grown up too. That's totally different though, because that's horror. I think
That's true.
that's a different genre.
That's true. Also, iconic first chapter.
Oh my God.
Um,
I'm pretty sure the first sentence of that one is iconic, if I remember correctly.
I agree. I think Dark Places. I remember reading it, and I think I watched. You did a book talk about it, like with your group. I either I saw a social media post that you were gonna do, or I'm pretty sure either you mentioned it in the past
Okay,
when
for
we
sure.
must have talked about it. Yes, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, for the folks who love Gillian Flynn, the way she just writes like that darker segment of a person's soul, like the choices you make when it's like you're too far gone, like the sunk cost is literal. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, It's the same feeling as like in Psycho when you see the shower getting pulled open, that drop in your tummy. That's like every book by her. It's that drop in your tummy. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, oh no.
she's
She's
so good.
so good though.
And
She's
another
so
thing
good.
I love about this is that so when she gets desperate, she ends up getting offered $500 to do like a guest appearance for this club. It's called the Kill Club, and it's like these. It's basically this was written in 2009, I think. And so, wow, this is before the like true crime phase. Like she was so ahead of her time, but like they basically have a true crime club and they think that her brother is innocent. And she's not having this, but she's like, I really need that money. So she ends up going with this guy and meeting all of their true crime friends. And I think because of my kind of true crime obsession, that draws me into this book even more as well. And as far as the Charlize Theron adaptation, I have seen it. It's okay. I don't picture Charlize Theron as Libby Day personally. But there are some shocking actors in that movie that like you like such a there's so many actors in there that you would not expect. What is her name?
Chloe Grace Moretz.
Oh, yep, she's in that. And then the one that plays the brother, I think he's in Ready Player One or one of those movies. He's in some other movie. And then also the redheaded lady from Mad Men.
I know
She,
who you're talking about. The she was curvier and
yeah,
she was one of the key characters. Yes. I know
she's
who you're talking about. Christina Hendricks. Also amazing name.
yeah.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie and I didn't get a chance to see it. I think it's also on Netflix.
Oh,
So
is
I'm
that?
sitting here and I'm like, maybe it's worth a shot to watch. I to this day I feel like I mean I'd
It's,
watch it. Give it a chance.
yeah,
I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. Nothing beats Sharp Objects adaptation to me was like,
so good. I
oh,
mean,
this was actually very well done.
no, Amy Adams can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. I anything with Amy Adams, I'm on board. I love her so much.
I mean, she's pretty awesome. She's pretty cool. I liked her in Nocturnal Animals. That was one of those movies I feel like nobody talked about that she did. That was so freaking good.
Do
That
you
was
mean
with her and Jake Gyllenhaal. That was giving kind of like psychological messiness. They were married and like something happened and their marriage fell apart and he had nothing at the time and he ends up like I think becoming successful. He calls her, he's like, let's have dinner, let's try to reconcile. She goes to the dinner place, he never shows up.
oh my goodness. Okay, I've never heard of this. I'm gonna have to watch
It's
it.
it's darker though. Like it's not like a you oh we want you to be together. Like they were not good together. I
Okay.
remember that being very like atmospheric and just her she's like an art dealer and she's very cold and withdrawn. I don't remember what it was that broke them apart. But I remember seeing her in that film and it's the iconic shot of her in this like I think she's in like a brown dress and she's just so like cold. But when she thinks he's coming, she like lights up a little bit and then
Oh.
realizes that he's not coming. Like he's abandoning her. Like Uno reverse card. It was her face is amazing. Like the way she portrays her emotions. Sharp Objects, I was like, I just wanted to go through the screen and save her. Like I just wanted to pull her out of the situation. Same thing with the book. You just want to protect her.
Arrival is another one that she's in that is so insanely good.
Uh,
Oh, what is that comedy with the pageants? Why can't I think of it right now? Drop Dead Gorgeous.
yes.
So
I
I
remember that.
love that movie so much. And then what was the one with the big eyes where she plays that
I
artist?
think it was Big Eyes.
Big Eyes,
I think
something like that.
I think it was the girl whose art was stolen by her husband.
Yeah, that one was like they're all so different. She's iconic for sure.
I think Sharp Objects for me is just the Southern Gothic claustrophobic like mommy knows best creepiness. I
Mm.
think someone who does not get enough flowers in that film was the woman who played the mother. I was like, you have to be nurturing and also controlling, like at the drop of a hat. And I was like, that's a very fine line.
Yeah, she did great with that too.
Also, Southern Mamas, it's a very rare, it's a unique personality. So I was like, we need someone who understands that personality. So yeah, I absolutely love that. I hope The Grown Up becomes a film. Let's complete the trilogy, if you will. But I guess we'll never know. It's a very unique emotion. So
Or no, it's so short. If it would probably be like a one episode of like an or something. I
I
don't know.
would be okay with that. I would totally be, or like I would love to see Gone Girl, like their if they did like a mini series of Gillian Flynn, I would love to see like Gone Girl them a year later. Like not much. I just need to see what the psyche, like what it's like a year later. Also, Ben Affleck gives me the creeps. So like let him play a creepy character. I think it would not be that hard for him to portray. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, he married two Jennifers back to back. Red flags. But yeah, he creeps me out. Ben Affleck creeps me out. Whenever I think of a creepy, like in real life, yeah. I saw him in Gone Girl and I was like, this is exactly how I see him in real life. He gives me the creeps. And his character in Gone Girl, that switch between I didn't cheat on her, I didn't hurt her, to flashbacks of situations that were aggressive and harmful, I was like, yeah, you give me the creeps. So I was like, yeah, but whenever I think of like a creepy man in a thriller or a horror, I just imagine that actor. Yeah, it's nice to you know, it's not that hard. But
Right.
he played Batman, but he was the most violent Batman. I'm like,
Mm.
so it all connects. No offense to the real man, I'm sure he's very nice, but acting wise, he was so good in Gone Girl that now I just cast him in like all of my mental movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like when I read books, I'm like, yeah, Ben Affleck would kill that actor. Like he would be so good at acting in that film or that show. If it becomes a movie and gets on the screen, I'm like, throw Ben Affleck in it. He's got it. So
I have like before all of that, like my impression of Ben Affleck is more stems from like his movies with Matt Damon. What's the
like
one?
Goodwill Hunting,
What is it?
like Goodwill Hunting,
Yes. Where
like
he's
the best
in
friend.
Boston, he's like, hey, or Harvard Yard, or whatever. Like that's kind of like my I just think he's kind of a dork, honestly. He's just like one of those guys that's like, hey Jimmy, come and kick the ball in the street with me.
I I don't know. I think seeing him in Gone Girl for me, there was something about that like no light behind the eyes. I know more than I'm letting on. I don't know why that was so chilling to me. Like this concept of like he's lying to your face, but he's able to portray the like all Americana husband who means well, but behind closed doors, there's things he's keeping, a certain darkness, certain selfishness. I was like, huh, like that's interesting. I find that interesting. Like to play a jerk, I think requires you to either have known a jerk or play off things that you've seen. So like when I think of certain horror films, I see these amazing sweet actors who like are very kind during interviews, but they play these horrible, horrible men on screen. I'm sitting here and I'm like, that's impressive. Like you're able to make me dislike you on screen so much. Or even in books where like authors write these men who are in stories who are killers, predators, just dark, shadowy, like nothing in their heart. And then the author is like, I pulled from this in real life, or I'm pulling from these fears of my own. To create that would have to be born from a seed of something that you saw or inspired you. I think that's what's so interesting about thrillers, especially with women as well, dark characters that are women. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, what how do you write someone like that? Like write the person who keeps you up at night. You know what I mean? Like it's very interesting. Like these thrillers. I'm like, someone had to inspire this character. Like,
Be an exercise of like what's the worst that could happen, and then it just culminates into I don't know, I've never written a
I
book,
don't know.
but
I don't know. I just that's why I like to interview authors sometimes. Because I'm like, what inspired this for you? And they're like A, B, and C. And I'm like, but how did you get there? So I find it interesting, like from your mind to the page. You
Mhm.
know, like is it pulled from thin air or was it inspired by a person you've met or a conversation you heard? Like I just find that interesting. Yeah. But anyway, what are your next few bookish picks in this stack?
Okay, I have two more.
Okay.
And I can't believe I don't own this book. I could have sworn I did. But my next one is one that I've read more recently and really ended up loving, and that is Penance by Eliza Clark.
Ooh, I haven't heard of this one.
Okay, here I have let me show you the little picture. This is what the
Ooh.
That's
Okay, tell me about it.
Penance by Kane Minato. So both same title. But this one, okay, so this has also a lot to do with like the true crime like era and how we perceive these things that are happening and like whose perspective is it coming from and do we know the real truth? So this is a story, well, first of all, let me read the little blip that it shows because it kind of gives you the tone of it. Do you know what happened already? Did you know her? Did you see it on the internet? Did you listen to a podcast? Did the hosts make jokes? Did you see the pictures of the body? Did you look for them? So, like, that's just kind of like the introduction of this. But essentially, there was a murder of a 16-year-old girl, Joan Wilson, on this seaside town, in the seaside town called Crow-on-Sea. And the events of that terrible night are now being published for the first time in this book called Penance. But in this book, it's like a book within a book, right? So even though we know Eliza Clark has written this, she's presenting this as a book that's written by a journalist called Alec Z. Corelli. And so we're getting his perspective of the things that he has gathered about this event and the crime. He's interviewing some of the people who are involved. He's getting in touch with their families. We're also getting little tidbits of a podcast that was created about the situation. And we see the podcaster's representation of the story. And it comes down to like this like story of these lives that have been rocked by tragedy and a town left in turmoil. But the only question is how much of that is true?
Ooh.
So it is very much like playing on this idea that even though Eliza Clark wrote this, it's written by this dude, and we're getting a very dude-centric idea of what actually happened. And so it's really, like I said, the social commentary, the critiques in here are very strong. We're talking about, you know, the truth. Like, how do we even get to the truth? How is the truth distorted? How, like you were saying with that Megan Collins books, where like there's two different ways of seeing it. This is
Mm.
also kind of similarly along that vein because you don't know what you're being fed. And then it also like leads into a discussion about like how we are so influenced, how we can be influenced by this thing or that thing, and that doesn't necessarily make it true or make it real. Um, yeah, and I love that like it's so quick to get through because it's like all of these little interviews. I love an interview style story because it just like reads so quick to me. And then also like the audiobook is excellent for this as well. So yeah, that's my one of my new favorite thrillers. I think Eliza Clark has such an original, unique voice, and she is a little bit edgier. She's a little bit like this is the author of Boy Parts, and She's Always Hungry. It was her short story collection.
Ooh.
And again, like I do feel like she has such an original and honest and authentic point of view. And I don't think this book gets enough credit. It's so good.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm adding She's Always Hungry to my also like my TBR because I love a good anthology. Like I love like short story collections. Um, I will say that like with true crime and like perspectives, I think the first book, I don't know if you've read it. I hope that you have, but if you haven't, you definitely can. The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. Even though it's a retelling of Carrie,
yes.
yes, but it's from the perspective of a young woman who is interracial. So like where her dad uses the hot comb and like combs her hair, which is a very painful experience. She one day it rains and she's terrified of getting her hair wet. I think she's also partially afraid of like punishment from her father, but her hair gets wet, she cannot avoid it. And they were out at PE and her hair puffs up and you see her experience bullying as the Carrie tale, but you also get flashbacks of a podcast that
Okay.
is going through the timeline of like leading up to the day of when
Mm,
she commits the Carrie act.
yeah.
But you're getting from her perspective in real time, like from the past, I suppose, her navigating telekinesis, her experience of hearing a voice in her mind influencing the anger she's feeling, the pain she's feeling, the bullying, not realizing who she is and what that means, and that link to race, and her father pushing on these perspectives of what womanhood is, what being a good woman is. She doesn't know anything else. So she's getting the influence and this feeling of people in her school who try to befriend her, the isolation, while also navigating this internal power. And then you get the podcast who's interviewing people from her school who like bullied her. You're getting interviews of people who saw things from the corner of their eye, or like you're getting pieces from their perspective, and you're beginning to realize the crime she committed, the things that she did at the very end of the story. You're getting the build up from her perspective, and then you're getting the perspectives from the podcast where like they're getting point of view from like town people, a cop, like someone who said that they saw her once and she acted a certain way. So by the end of the story, you're sitting here like, you know what happened, but you're also hearing from the podcast from the victims and from people who lost people who are saying like she was just always horrible. She was always, oh, the bullying wasn't that bad. And just it's this flipping back and forth,
Mhm.
and it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And it also makes you think about the source of information. It's
Mhm.
very good and a little bit open ended.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
Well,
not too harsh on her in the end.
I have to admit, I have not read Carrie either. I have not read Carrie by Stephen King.
Okay.
So, since you've read both of them, if I were to read them both, should I do the original first and then The Weight of Blood, or should I read The Weight of Blood and then Carrie?
I would read Carrie first. Even though I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, I will admit that when I first read Carrie, I was a little offended because I was going through my first cycle at the time. So I knew physically what my body was going through. And then I was reading this book and I was like, how is he going to talk about what my body's going through?
Mm.
Like, and there's a bullying scene that involves a cycle, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is a very vulnerable place for a woman to be in, and he's writing about it in such a harsh and painful way. And I was angry. Like as a teenager, I was like, F him. Like, why is a man talking about what I'm experiencing in my body and will have to experience every single month for the majority of my life?
Yeah.
But now, from an outside perspective, as I'm older, when I read The Weight of Blood, and a certain scenes from Carrie happen in this story, but in a different context, linking in race,
Mm.
and just being bullied and feeling freaking angry and scared. I realized that The Weight of Blood to me was a more vulnerable and almost like a validated, like a healing for her. And in The Weight of Blood, instead of Carrie, you have Maddie, and you also get to see her have a crush on the football player. Certain storylines in Carrie that you get in the original, you see in The Weight of Blood, but in a very like, you just want to reach to the page and fucking save her. Like you just want to be there for her. Similarly to Carrie and Stephen King, you just wanted to, she's so isolated. So I would recommend actually reading Carrie by Stephen King so that you can get the like big major moments that make it the iconic Carrie tale. But then when you read The Weight of Blood, you'll get that, but you'll also get the mixed media. You'll get the element of intersectionality between race and mental health, small town. There's also some elements that dive a little bit deeper into her abilities and allude to the sense of, are you falling in love or are you being pulled into it? You know what I mean? Like it was very haunting. Also, there's a character who in the original Carrie is a mother figure who is enforcing religious trauma and manipulation onto Carrie. And in the version of The Weight of Blood, you're getting a father figure. And he's
Okay.
pushing on these perspectives of like the Greece era. And this is what womanhood should look like. You should look this way. You should act this way. And he's pushing that onto her. So both stand on their own, but I have a soft spot for The Weight of Blood. So I would love to see how you feel once you've read Carrie first and then The Weight of Blood. So you can kind of see who did it better. So it's amazing. Also, Tiffany D. Jackson is such a uh her writing is so electric. You want to talk about dark? Whoa, like she is not afraid to go there. And in Carrie, you do get that. And I think you'll appreciate the mixed media as well. The audiobook for The Weight of Blood was one of the best audiobooks I've ever heard.
Okay.
Yeah. The podcast element, I don't know if the girl was Australian, like for the podcaster, but you can hear a different person, like a different voice for the podcasters versus the
Okay.
like like timid Maddie, who you can feel her anxiety and concern. You get the podcasters and they're like, yeah, they found this at the high school, and that references their entire tone changes. It feels like a different time. So it's very good. It's super
Well,
awesome. And like secondhand accounts, I think you'll really like it.
those have both been on my TBR for years.
Yay!
All right. And so
Number one.
the last one we talked about was Penance by Eliza Clark. And then my very last book,
Ooh.
that is one of my all-time favorite thrillers. This one was written the longest ago. It is the oldest, I think. I'm pretty sure. And it's The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris.
Oh
Um, have
my God.
you ever seen the film?
I have. I have. My family always makes the comment, he put the lotion in the basket. I'm just
Put it on the skin or else it gets the hole again. Yes.
same thing where it's like a what is it? I'll eat your liver with a Chianti. It's just
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting here as two like unhinged like horror and thriller girls. I'm like, drop
Uh,
your references. But
I,
yes.
I mean, this one could edge horror, I guess, as well, but because it's following the FBI agent, because it's got a procedural type of format, I am considering this a thriller. I will say though, I've watched the movie before I read the book. And this was one of those that I was like, I don't need to read the book. Like I've seen the film, it's iconic, like it's not gonna be that much better. And every time I do this, I am proven wrong because I decided to go ahead and pick it up. And I will say the audio narrator. So what's interesting about this is that the film came out. So this was written in I think 88.
Oh wow.
And film came out in 91, I want to say. don't don't like fact check these
It's
before
okay.
but somewhere around that time. And but the audiobook didn't come out until years later because audio was not a thing. Audiobooks were not really a thing in 1991, and if they were, you were getting a thing of tapes that you were listening to them on. But the guy who audio narrated this, his name is Frank Muller, and he is iconic. He is so good, and you can
Hmm.
tell that he is taking on the characters of the actual actors in the films. Like Hannibal Lecter sounds like Hannibal Lecter, and Jodie Foster's
Oh.
character, he's Clarice sounds like Jodie Foster's character. Like, um, Hopkins, like he really just like brings it to life. But what I love most, of course, is that we're getting more information from the book, as we always do, than we get in the movie. We get
Hmm.
more of this kind of background of Clarice and like what she's coming from and what's motivating her. We also get a lot more of the um
Elizabeth, are you there? Oh. Hey folks, we were just touching base on the amazing elements of Silence of the Lambs from a book to film and how the audiobook was kind of beyond its time, like which is really, really cool. But this is your last book recommendation from your top 10 favorite thrillers of all time as of right now. And I
as
guess
of
my question is, why'd you choose this one? Why was this your last book choice?
Well, I feel like this one, like I wanted to end on this because I feel like a lot of people have some experience with this. Like it's been in the zeitgeist for so long that I feel like a lot of people have been touched by this story in some way. And I also love that I love Clarice's character in this story. So I guess for anyone who doesn't know, this is actually the second book in the series in the Hannibal Lecter series. This is number two. So the first one is Red Dragon, which I think I have here too somewhere. Well, I don't know where it is, but
I don't think
um,
it was.
Red Dragon. But this one absolutely can be read by itself, and I know I hate when people say that because like I want to know all the juicy details and stuff, but it you don't need the first one, honestly. And yeah, Claire, I love Clarice's character in this. I love that she's such a badass. and she is pushing through all of her insecurities in order to, for the greater good, right? In order to find this guy and to help people out. I also just love how dark it is. I love that we have this cannibalistic serial killer in the form of Hannibal Lecter, who is also a psychologist. And I think that's part of what draws me in too, because he is seeing through people. He is seeing through her. And, there's that whole like quid pro quo. Like, if you want to know something from me, you need to expose some vulnerability in yourself. And I do feel like generally, like, that's how I feel when I'm in the world. Like, I am one of those people where like my heart is on my sleeve, and I think some people are uncomfortable with that. Like, I cry a lot, whether I'm happy, whether I'm sad, whether I'm like any emotion. Like, it's not even like a sad thing. It's just like I feel deeply, and I think some people are like would be ashamed of that, but I'm not, because I feel like I'm just being myself. I'm being my authentic self. And um when it comes to like this idea of him like looking into her and the things that she's trying to hide from him and what those little things reveal about not just her but about him as well, it's just like it's a little bit pretentious, but it's like so much fun. It's like this cat and mouse, and then of course it's like very dark. So yeah, I think that's what I'm drawn to about this. And just the experience of the audiobook with me, like I cannot recommend the audiobook enough. And unfortunately, the guy who did the audiobook, Frank Muller, is no longer with us. Um, I think he died in a car accident actually in like the early 2000s. But man, the way that like we have just like I don't know, almost like frozen it in time with his adaptation of this story vocally. It's just like a beautiful thing. And I do think like this is kind of a classic thriller in the sense that, it has that FBI, it has the procedural, they're trying to find the killer. And, I feel like a lot of people go to that when they think of thrillers. And so, yeah, I just wanted to leave some space on this list for something like this that has been influencing us, since the 80s and is still so impactful today. Um, yeah, and that is The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris.
That was an amazing way to close out your top 10 books, your thriller recommendations, and your favorites as of this chapter of your life. I think that it's one of those books that, like, even if you've never read the book or if you've seen the film, the way that the actor who plays Hannibal Lecter, the way that he carried himself, I remember, I don't remember how old I was when I saw the movie, but I remember as you're going through the cells and you're seeing people and like the escalation of people who like banging against the cells. When you finally get to him, he's like sitting very like still. He's got like a beautiful setup with the bookshelves and everything is so pristine, and his voice is so calm. The white
Wait,
everything. I remember I was like, like he seems very collected, and then you realize what's going on. You're like, oh my golly, Wally, but it's one of those actors where it's a character he portrays that is so iconic. The
mm,
mask and everything, wheeling him out. Um,
Anthony
also,
Hopkins.
just wonderful. I'm like, yeah, he's an icon. Also, I remember it became a show as well. So I
Yeah.
remember that got adapted as a television show. I do not know if it's like T for T like the book, but I remember the visuals of the show were so spooky and
Mm,
like visceral. I just remember watching episodes of the show and I was like, I need to find a book that matches these vibes. Like the
mm,
psychological twists of also the like emotional, like why is this man like I don't know, like you're chasing him and he's chasing you and he's always a step ahead and why does he eat people? Like it's just it's such an interesting character. It's so spooky. So I absolutely love all your book choices. And as we close out this episode, where can everyone find you on social media? Where can they find your booktube and all the things?
yes, I thank you, first of all. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. Um, and I wouldn't have done this otherwise. So I'm like, okay, now I
Oh,
have of like
you
I
did
actually
it.
figure out like what is my favorite thriller. I haven't thought about that in a while, so I really appreciate you. Um, But yes, if you want to follow me on YouTube, it is at Reading Wryly, and that is Rye like a rye smile. So it's Wryly. So reading Wryly. And that's the same for Instagram. Yeah, it's Reading Riley everywhere and TikTok. So, yeah, that's where y'all can find me. And I am working on, I think by the time this comes out, I will have already released it. But right now, I'm working on a reading vlog where I'm reading new release horror. And so that should be up soon if you're interested in checking that out. I read Headlights by CJ Lead. I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy, which is his new short story collection. I read Dead Weight by Hildur Knotstetter, and then I read Mocha by Monica Kim.
Oh my
So,
gosh, yes, I want to read Mocha
taking that
too. It's on
frantic.
my list at the library. I'm like, yes. So I
Yes,
can't wait to hear your thoughts on Mocha. I will definitely be DMing you like, oh my golly, Wally, I can't wait to read it so I can like talk to you about it. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I'll also link your YouTube in the show notes below, along with all your socials, so listeners, you can find Elizabeth because she's so amazing, and all of your book episodes are just divine. They're like a hug after a scary movie. It's just great.
I love
It's
that.
awesome. So it's the best vibe. So yes, for everyone listened, like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, leave a nice little rating, and please make sure to follow Reading Riley because YouTube, she's amazing. Instagram, she's divine. If you like thrillers and you like spooky tales every once in a while, we're in Summerween. Halloween's right around the corner. Like, let's get it. Let's get our book recommendations on right now. Have a great
Yeah.
day, everyone, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.